Good afternoon. My name is Bob Braun, and I'm out here at the Ironworkers Local 24 Apprenticeship Building on this beautiful fall day. And as a little thing to introduce myself, I ran for office in 1967 as financial secretary. At that time, we had a split financial secretary and business manager. And I was elected, and I was elected in two-year terms, then 69, then we went to three-year terms, 72, 75, and 78. I left and resigned my position in 1978 in February because of a little situation, and came back, and it was election year, and I ran for business manager, and I was elected business manager. In 1978, I was subsequently elected again in 81, in 84, and 87. And so I served a total of just under 20 years in office. At times it was a great job, I enjoyed it, and at other times it was a little stressful. And I think that's probably why I resigned pretty early. I resigned at 55 age in April 1. And I said I was elected in 87. I was in office. I quit in 87. Howard Rackey was elected. Howard's here today, so he'll talk about that. But overall, the land here, looked at it, and Dennis O'Brien, who used to be our apprenticeship coordinator, who died an untimely death at age 50, and I were very good friends. We started looking at property and talking about property, and I said it'd be nice if we had a new building. We'd been there on 501 West 4th for quite a while, kind of outgrowing it. So we looked for land, we looked several, and we found this place, and it's 2.02 acres, if I remember right. And we purchased it, and in 78, when I quit, the membership said we weren't going to build a building here. It was going to be a Ironworkers Union Hall. We're going to have some rentals, and we're going to rent to 507, our sister local. And they decided they wouldn't do it. And when Howard came in office, he continued to support the thing and kept the property and mowed the weeds, and he'll tell you about that if he wants to, but kept the property, and ultimately it ended up with this. And I've got to say, it's a beautiful facility. I could not imagine when I drove up, when I looked at this, that this was the place. I just couldn't envision this much. And I had drawings made up for the building previous to this. And nothing this size, but anyway. So that's about it. I retired in 87, April 1, and have been doing odds and ends. I worked on a golf course for a while and did some odds and ends things, and busy all the time. When you retire, you think you're going to lay around. You don't lay around very much as you get busy. And I've been on, you can notice I've got oxygen, and I've been on that 3 years. It's called interstitial lung disease, and I had kind of a bad spell for a while. I had a couple of blood clots in each leg, and I had a light stroke. I recovered from that, and they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I feel better today than I did 3 years ago. So anyway, that's kind of my story, and I know we'll discuss more here in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. My name's Howard Rathie, and I became a member of Ironworkers Local 24 in 1959, September 1959. This was my 51st year, proud to say, and met Bob out on the missile bases, and I knew Bob working out on the missile bases. One of the first guys that welders that I worked around, and voted for him in the election, first election that he ran for, and always voted and supported him. And we become real good friends. We were always good friends. And in 1978, when he ran for business manager, members come to me and asked me if I'd run for the financial secretary treasurer job. And I really didn't want to get in office at that early of age. I'd always had opportunities to go with companies, to go work all over the world if I wanted to, but I wanted to stay here and watch my family grow up rather than go out and become a millionaire or make a lot of money. wasn't my object. So I said, well, now my kids are grown. Me and Mary's going to go, as my wife, going to go travel around the world and see the world. And I says, well, if you run for the job, and if you get in there, you're in there. If you don't, go see the world. So I ran for the financial secretary job and won the election, and was in there financial secretary treasurer 1987 when Bob retired, and they put a resolution on the floor to incorporate the office of business manager and financial secretary into one office, because we were starting to get a little low on funds, and the local members didn't think it could really support two individual officers at that time, the expenses of the automobile and everything, so they voted to incorporate the office of business manager and financial secretary treasurer into one office. And I had the big advantage of working with Bob and as him as business manager and being good friends. And so when it come time that I won the election for the business manager, financial secretary, treasurer, and I held that office till 1996, October the 4th, when I retired. And one of the reasons I retired, my wife had breast cancer in 1993, and I figured 94, 95, she was pretty well cleared of the cancer, and I thought, well, we're going to retire and enjoy life a little bit while we still have each other, you know. And I'm glad I did. One of the best things I think I ever did. And but during the years that I was in office, it was a battle to keep this land. People, the membership didn't really want me to keep this land. They said it was too expensive to pay the taxes and the upkeep. Because I used to come up here and mow the weeds, and I know Bob did too. And you come up here and cut these weeds when you get an order from the city of Adams County to come and keep this property clean. That's a hell of a job. And he used to come up here, me and my son would help me and come mow. And finally, in I think it was about 93, they had a big hailstorm come through Denver, and it tore a lot of roofs up. We had a good neighbor, or one of the good neighbors who lived across the street. I don't know if he still lives there or not, a guy by the name of Jerry Nelson. He's a Teamster, ex-Teamster. And he called me up one day and he says, hey, you, Howard, you know what's going on with that land? What's going on in your land over there? I said, no. And he says, well, they're dumping all this, they were stripping all these roofs, and they're dumping all the roofing out on this land. So I come out and I look, holy mackerel. It took like 4 dump truck loads to get it out of here, to clear it out of here. So he had a couple of trucks and everything, so I made a deal with him. If he would watch this land and let me know what's going on, he could park his trucks and use it kind of as a parking lot for him, you know. So we had an agreement like that, and he kept it clean and everything for us. And then when I retired in 96, we still had the land, and I think I'm glad that I fought to keep it, and I know Bob sees this building here, and I'm glad that I fought to keep it. And boy, I tell you, the facility we have now here is first class. It's diamond. It's the diamond of our apprenticeship. Now we've always contended that Local 24 had the best apprenticeship in the whole United States, and now this proves that we do have the best apprenticeship in the whole United States. I'm proud to be an instructor. I've been an instructor since 1973. Bob was an instructor, and he helped me get started as an instructor. And I've been an instructor ever since. This last year was my 37th complete year as an instructor. I've been a related instructor, welding instructor. Welding is really what I love the best to do, is weld. So I've been basically a welding instructor probably for the last, 20 years or so. So out of the 37. And we used to have, the apprenticeship used to be, when I came in 1959, we held our classes down in the Union Hall. And we had our welding classes down at Emily Griffith on Fox, then, was that Glenarm?
Right off Colfax.
Right off Colfax.
Right off of Colfax and 12th Street.
Colfax or something.
And that's where we went down there, and that's where we held the welding classes, but our related classes was held right there in the Union Hall. And when I came in, they had two first-year classes because the missile bases had just started. And there was I think had 80 apprentices. They had two first-year classes. And ironically, I quit school when I was 14 years old. So I didn't have none of that there high school diploma. And you could get in an apprenticeship program if you had some of the journeymen vouch for you, that they knew you, and you had a good reputable character. And Rex Price, which used to be the main owner of Ridge Erection Company, was one of the guys that signed my recommendation to get in. And you didn't have to have a high school diploma, but you did have to go down and take an aptitude test. Well, one thing, my dad pretty well schooled me on everything when I was going into school. I had to carry straight A's, or he'd let you know that you had to get your act together and have straight A's in there. And I could lay brick when I was 12, so when I got 14, I said, I'm not going back to the Christmas vacation. I said, I'm not going back to school. And he said, well, you're going to go to work for me full time. That's all right. I've been working for you since I was 8 years old. So I went to work carrying hod and laying brick, and I was going to be a bricklayer. But them days, they didn't have all the stuff that the Visqueen buildings in and everything. So if weather got bad, you didn't work, period. So you had some pretty lean paycheck deals. And I had a great friend that was an iron worker, and he said, hey, they're going to open an apprenticeship up, and then build these missile bases are coming out here east of Denver, and you don't have to have a high school diploma. You want to go down and apply for it? And I said, hell yeah, I do. And I had been on hunting trips with him, and that's where I met all the other iron workers, like Rick Price and them guys, because they were hunting with Dick Clemens was the guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he run around with them, and so I become where they would vouch for me to get in, and that's how I got in the iron workers. And the next year you had to have a high school diploma. But since then, because of Herb Schilleroff, when he become the director of the apprenticeship in the state of Colorado, and that was about 1970, 69.
Yeah, roughly then. Yeah,
about then.
yeah, because
Yeah.
he had an office with me.
He had
In the
his
Union Hall.
office down there at the Union Hall.
With me, yeah.
Sharing with Bob.
Yep.
Little space they had together, they had both offices in there. And I went in there one day, and it was about 1971, and went in there, and Herb says, hey, Howard, what do you think? I said, well, I'm going to pay my dues. He says, come on in here. When you get through, I'm going to talk to you. And I went in, he says, you ever thought about being an instructor? We need instructors for our apprenticeship program. I said, Herb, I don't have the education. He said, well, I know what education you have, because I had Herb as my instructor all 3 years. And he said, but I do know your character and your ability, and seen you on the jobs and worked with you up at Platteville. And he said, I think you'd make a good instructor. He said, we can get you a GED, go down and take the GED test. If you pass it, you pass it. If you don't, study and to retake it again. So I went down and got my GED, and then the next year I went to summer school and took courses through CU to get my teacher's certificate to be an instructor for the apprenticeship program, because at that time the teachers union tried to take over the apprenticeship program here in Colorado.
Yep.
And they were very adamant about the people teaching the apprenticeship program didn't have the education and the credentials to teach their own craft. And good thing guys like Bob and them fought that we were able to teach our own people, and but we would get credentials. So we had to go get the teacher certificate, just like a regular teacher, which is good in any school. And I went and done that in 72. I had all that done. In 73, I started as an instructor in 1973. and been there ever since. And it's one of the most gratifying things that I think I've ever done in my life is being an instructor. I love this apprenticeship program, and I love being involved with it, and I able to keep and be an instructor all them years, and proud to be here. I'm proud to see this facility. I tell you, this is amazing. This is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is what it is.
Can you spell that?
That's how wonderful it is. I'll turn it over to somebody else now, and the next senior instructor would be Bill Melcher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my name's Bill Melcher. I came into Ironworkers in 1963 in August. Had Herbie for 3 years. He was a kick in the butt, I'm telling you. Me and a buddy of mine drove him crazy. Guy named Bernard Gill. What he didn't think of, I did. I'm surprised he did. I'm surprised he didn't throw us out of the dealie. But he was a good teacher. He taught us a lot, I'm telling you. Then I started welding in '64 by Foos, because they thought I was welding on one job, and I didn't weld on that job, but they said I did, so I became a welder. Then they give us a test, was on the Blue Cross Blue Shield. No, Big T made us all take tests anyway, so we took the test, I passed it, I became a welder. You know, I welded for about 30 years off and on, doing this, that, and everything welding. And then in 1982, John Newton asked me if I wanted to be a welding instructor. Me and John grew up together more or less. I've known him since he was about 5 years old in first grade. And so he asked me if I wanted to be a welding instructor. I said, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good deal. So I like to weld anyway. So I started teaching them, and become an obsession. I like to get welders and turn them into good welders. That way, because I tell them to learn inner shield, because this sounds cold, but this is the way it is. When you're running an inner shield on a big job, you make more money. Everybody says the connectors always made more money, but the welders made more money because they stayed longer. The connectors, as soon as that iron was done, they made good money and it was gone. Then about 3 months later, the welders was finally gone. They're still making good money. But like I said, I came in 1992 teaching welding, and after we first started, I was down there on Santa Fe, working down there. And then they bought that school down on Walnut, and then we moved down there, and then we moved up to this fantastic place. I'm really looking forward to teaching in here, because man, they got some nice machines, I'll tell you. And they've got a lot of things we didn't have before, so I can teach these kids a lot more than I used to teach them. Yeah, because there's just so much more here, so it's unbelievable. And we're going to try out some fantastic welders this time, I'm telling you. But that's about it. I welded for, like I said, for about 28, 30 years, baby. Then they made a foreman out of me, and that was a big joke, because I've been used to welding underneath the hood and talking to myself. Then all of a sudden I'm going to meetings and everything else, like then running jobs. You think that ain't scary? It took me about 4 or 5 years to get used to doing that, but it was good. Then I retired in what is this, 2003? Yeah. I retired in 2003 after 42 and a half years being in iron. And I kind of miss it, I really do. The summertime, I go fishing and have a good time and all that. And then in the wintertime, nothing to do. And I kind of miss working, I really do. I miss the camaraderie is what I miss. With ironworkers and farting around and drinking with them. It's a lot of fun. That's all part of it anyway. You gotta be an ironworker, you gotta drink, I'm telling you. Simple as that. But it was good, it was good. It was a good life. But I'll tell you, right now, I'm sure glad they built this building, because it's really nice. Man, you can teach the people here a lot of stuff, I'm telling you. Hierarchy, you name it. But that's about it. That's my life right there. Unless you want to talk about fishing. I can talk about fishing forever. But that's it, so I'll turn it over to Leroy.
Good afternoon. My name's Leroy Rathy. I became an iron worker in 1973. I practiced the trade until 1984. I was asked to be a welding instructor. I became a welding instructor, instructed until 2004. I retired with a Social Security disability. Actually one of the best things I ever done in my life. I've had several people ask me how I adjusted to retirement, and I told them I had no problem at all because I never did like working. The only reason I went to work was to make a living. If I would have had the money where I wouldn't have had to went to work, I wouldn't have never done it. Since retiring,
I can believe
I've
that.
found out that
I'll second that.
actually I'm busier now than I've ever been in my entire life. Having a good time, had a very good experience as an ironworker. Loved instructing. I actually had the pleasure of instructing the first 4-year apprenticeship class in Local 24. That was a learning experience. I believe me as an instructor, I learned probably more than the students that I had under my care. I learned just as much from them as they probably did me, probably more. I've been lucky enough to have a little bit of good health with me through my career. Like I said earlier, I retired with a Social Security disability, which was on a car accident, not anything to do with the trade. But certainly enjoying what I've got. I thank the ironworkers for accepting me as an apprenticeship instructor and as a journeyman ironworker. This building and facility is a dream come true for the entire local and not just an individual thing.
It really is.
Beautiful complex. That's all I got to say.
I might, since we're apprenticeship, I don't think I mentioned that I taught apprenticeship welding at Opportunity School. And after that, I also taught related training for a number of years. And one of my outstanding students, Joe Mulready, is connected with the apprenticeship program. I saw him today for the first time in many years. But to go back to, I guess I'm the old timer here. I started as an apprentice in '51. Got my journeyman card in April of '52, and was a journeyman, and got drafted in the Korean conflict, and went to Fort Leonard Wood in October of '52. And since I had a journeyman's card when I got out of basic training, they decided to keep me there and made me an instructor in a structural steel school, a 5-week class that we had. We built Bilby Tower, 113-footer and a 103-footer inside. We built a suspension bridge, and they gave me an MOS, which in the military is what you're supposed to be able to do, 83100, and nobody's ever heard of one of them. But I did teach then, and after that I was temporary duty, TDY they call it, to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, to build some Butler buildings. I was there 7 weeks, and like the military sometimes does, we never got the building. So they sent me overseas, and while I was there, in end of July of '53, we were on a boat in Lake Michigan, and the news came over that the fighting had stopped in Korea. And I said, oh boy, I didn't want to go there anyway. 2 days later they said, well, you're going overseas anyway, but they sent me the other way. I went to Germany. Since I'm a full-born kraut, it fit right in. I could eat that beer. I could eat that Wiener Schnitzel.
Oh yeah, you got that right.
Drink that beer. Oh,
Yeah.
the whole thing. But I did.
Gotta
I
be hot,
taught.
though.
I taught at the apprenticeship for a number of years, both welding and related training. Enjoyed it, and finally just.
And here all this time I thought I was one of your outstanding apprentices.
Well, I was going to mention you were second. But you weren't there the same year Joe was, were you?
No.
No, see, I'm talking about that year.
Oh, okay.
I'm not talking about forever. Not forever.
I'm still back in the ancient history part of it.
No, I had the Velasco brothers, and Bob and Joe, I guess, isn't it? Robert Velasco and
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah.
Outstanding. We went on strike here in 1980, and we were out like 8 weeks, and so our people started going out. I got phone calls from different locals. We sent a bunch to Local 7 in Massachusetts, Boston, San Diego 229, we sent some people, and I got calls back. We sent some people to a powerhouse in Kansas. We sent people to Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and any place that our people went. And a lot of these were young ironworkers who would travel. And I got commendation for those people from those business agents saying, hey, you got a hell of a program, but we're going to keep your ironworkers out here, especially in San Diego. And we never did get him back. So, Bobby Velasco.
Yeah.
And others the same way. They stayed in those locals. They made more money. We sent a couple to Local 40 in New York City, which has this monstrous wage scale. But anyway, we did prove to have some very outstanding workers here. I don't know what it was from or why, but when they went to other places, they said, your guys are very just super qualified. They know what they're doing. And I was always proud of that because I was part of the thing. I was on the apprenticeship committee for many years, chaired it for quite a few years, and we got along with our management side. It was a Taft-Hartley function, management and labor both. And we did very well. We got along with management, and they helped us. Anytime it came up for negotiations, there was one thing we could do was get money for our apprenticeship program, which was, to me, was one of the main functions.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the only way you build your organizations is to get young people who want to do your work. It's different now. I think, it seems to me anyway, that for whatever reason they think it's too hard or whatever, but we still get good. We still get good people.
Yeah, then we get their hands dirty.
The ones we get are very good. But anyway, so
One downside about being an iron worker, you'll learn when you're coming into this trade is a lot of times the only people that are going to relate to the way you talk and some of your mannerisms is going to be another iron worker. I don't know how this happens, but we tend to segregate ourselves from the rest of the population, I believe.
well,
Rest of the world.
we're cliquish. We're cliquish like the firefighters. We're cliquish like the policemen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they have their own organizations and they talk a different language than we do. But just one aside was one of our members is a head of opportunity school, and he had an article in there, and in that article that he wrote about opportunity school, they talked about the people that he had, and he said, I've got PhDs working for me down here. I've got educated people, he said, but the smartest people I ever worked around were iron workers. He said and I clipped the article out and I have it at home, but he said they adapt when they're on the job. Nothing ever fits right, so they have to change and do things. But he said iron workers are the most knowledgeable people, and I mean, we're not talking about PhDs or Yale or Harvard, MIT. We're talking about guys that work the trade.
I used to always make a statement.
Okay.